Hi everyone, my name is Joseph and welcome to Digimon Liberator, the novel portion, Debug 2-2. So unfortunately, it looks like there's no new chapters quite yet, but I'm going to assume that will be coming within the next 2 weeks or so. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe the chapters will be releasing at the same time for the comic and novel portion. I bring that up because the comic new chapter will be coming out, or new episode, excuse me, will be coming out next Thursday on the 11th, I believe it is. Let me quickly double check that. Yes, the 11th. So I'm going to assume that the novel will continue beyond that. I highly doubt it'll come out on the 11th of the same day, so it'll probably come out on the 18th, hopefully. To be frank with everyone, I'm actually kind of surprised that the new chapters haven't released yet. But anywho, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and discuss 2-2. So right off the bat, I have to say, I think this part is doing a good job of setting up the characterization for Rinwar. I do, maybe because the writers for Bandai, maybe they felt like for Yuki, her demeanor will be much more obvious. But I do wish that the way that the characterization is being handled for Rinwar was done the same way for Yuki. Maybe I should reread the first two, or chapter 1 as a whole, 1-1 and 1-2, to reintroduce myself to Yuki's character. Maybe they did do the same thing, and it's just that I'm being a little bit what's the word, unfair, it could be. Maybe because I'm being since it was a brand new story with Yuki, I was being much more impactful with my critiques. And since Rinwar, I'll be honest with everyone, I'm going to assume that Yuki is the protagonist, the main protagonist, while this Rinwar is going to be the duoderist or the co-protagonist. But despite being the co-protagonist or the duoderist, I would still argue, at least in my impression, my point of view, that Yuki was going to be the main quote-unquote character. In the same way that with Adventure 1, I would argue that Taichi and Yamato were the quote-unquote main well, the whole cast was the main characters, but the show had to focus on those two individuals. And then in the dub, there was even more focus put upon Tai's character to make those who watch the dub to believe, or make them feel like Tai was more of a main character than the rest of the cast. They were more a supporting cast. Hopefully it makes sense when I say that, because I know some in the Digimon community, and I don't blame them, I'm the same way as well. I would jump in and say, well, no, the entire cast for Adventure 1 and for Adventure 2 and so forth, they're always going to be the protagonists, the main characters. But I think that's easier to say when one has seen the sub, or in the sub version, I feel like the spotlight is shared a bit more equally. There's still a bit more focus on two individual characters, those two, of course, being Yamato and Taichi. But I feel like the sub version doesn't really ignore the rest of the cast. So hopefully that makes sense. But I say that just because I'm really actually appreciating the relationship between Rinwar and Fun Beamon. I might be projecting here as well, because some of my favorite kind of relationships are the ones that are supportive, or the ones that are, well, supporting. They work as a team, they work as a community. It's one of the reasons why my favorite character from Mass Effect is Garrus, or my nickname for him, Bear. Because I love the way that Garrus essentially becomes so close with Shepard that he admits to Shepard that they're basically essentially brothers with one another. I think that's really cool. Another really good example about that would be from The Walking Dead with Rick Grimes and Darrow's character. There's literally a scene where Darrow meets his biological brother, but Grimes tells Darrow literally that he needs him, not just him, but the group as well, and that he views him as a brother as well, even though they're not biologically brothers, that they are quote-unquote symbolically brothers. So I really like it when any piece of medium focuses on the relationship in a non-romantic kind of way. And it's seeming like Fun Beamon is not romantically attracted to Rinwar. Fun Beamon is just very much a happy-go-lucky kind of Digimon. So with that being said, let me go ahead and go through some of the quotes and a quick I suppose notification. Even though I'm praising the chapter so far, or 2-2, I do feel like in terms of the overall plot, the story was quote-unquote short. But when it comes to Liberator, I think they, being the writers, are doing a great job in the novel side and the comic side to mesh the world building together. And despite the plot not going forward, that doesn't really matter, because the characterization, the individuals who are partaking in this world, they're feeling quite alive. I have to say, between Shoto and Arisa, even though I would argue there seems to be more of a focus on the comic side than the novel side, as a reader, I feel more connected with Yuki and Rinrar. which is kind of an interesting thing for me to say because I do like Shoto, I do like Raisa, but I think just because of the format, I think because the novel side is in the more traditional, well, as it implies, novel format, one is able to get a bit more of the internal monologue, dialogue, thoughts that the characters are well thinking, right? One can't really do that with pictures, with a picture format, or with a television format as well, right? So anyway, so let me go ahead and go into the first quote. It was a forceful move, assertively disregarding cost. This must be the bing bang and boom that Yuki had talked about. Facing them for the first time, it makes sense that she was caught off guard. So I'm actually going to do something I don't typically do. I'm going to read another quote that I feel like really connects well with this quote that I just read, but it comes a bit further in the narration. And by the way, it's quick context. This is Rinwar and Fanbimon. They're fighting against a NPC who's very much in a priestly garb in a Mediterranean setting, or more like Mayan Aztec setting, it seems like. Central American, excuse me, not Mediterranean. Central American. Pardon me about that. And I suppose Aztec would be more North American than Central American. So Mayan, I'm going to go with Mayan. I'm probably being too pedantic, which is kind of ironic because the way that I started the video talking about protagonist versus supporting cast. Anyways, but yeah, so that's the context for this. Rinwar is fighting an individual, an NPC, who has just DNA Digivolved to Digimon. And later on, Rinwar states, the more unpredictable the opponent's deck, the more you need to push through. Your moves without panic. Let me reread that. The more unpredictable the opponent's deck, the more you need to push through your moves without panic, Yuki, Rinwar said to himself as if criticizing and taunting his absent friend. And with that, he fully regained his composure. So, this NPC that Rinwar is going up against, this is actually the NPC that Yuki had lost against with Impmon. And if one recalls in the previous chapter, 2-1, Rinwar specifically states that he's going out here not for revenge, he's going out here essentially for his own benefit. And what I like about this line so much is that he is thinking about his friend. This must be the bing, bang, and boom that Yuki talked about, facing them for the first time. It makes sense that she was caught off guard. That little line I actually really appreciate. I'm not going to lie. When I first read 2-1, I was a bit concerned that Rinwar might be the typical, I think I may have talked about this a little bit, I'm so mightier than thou, and I'm raising my glasses on purpose, kind of like that stereotype where the glasses flash and one can't see the person's eyes. But I was worried that they'll do that with Rinwar, that he'll be that stereotype. But so far, I'm really liking that he might be veering towards that kind of stereotype, but the writers so far are doing a good job of not fully embracing it, and he's still his own individual character. For me, when he states or when he thinks facing them for the first time, it makes sense that she was caught off guard. That for me tells me that Rinwar has respect for Yuki. He doesn't just believe that he's superior, doesn't just believe that she's beneath him, but he has respect for her skills as a card battler. And then continuing with that next line, the more unpredictable the opponent's deck, the more you need to push through your moves without panic, Yuki, Rinwar said to himself, as if criticizing and taunting his absent friend. So right here, this is one of those instances where I do wish I could see the original translation. I do wonder if Rinwar is truly taunting his absent friend. So oftentimes I feel like the word criticism or critique gets a bad rap. Usually when people think of negativity, criticism is placed under negativity, but I'll argue that if one is doing good critique, it's not just being negative, it's being constructive. So it is looking at both the positive and sometimes the negatives of a piece of material, be it a written, show, audio format. But you don't just bring it down to bring it down. You bring it down to discuss why is it quote unquote down. Maybe one should incorporate more dialogue, less dialogue, more showing versus telling. And that will hopefully create a piece that's much more tempered and reinforced compared to what was originally present. So criticism, again, I think it's a bad rap. So I'm not taking any umbrage or any concern with Rinwar's criticism, because I would argue that he would critique himself as well. But the use of the word taunting, I do wish that I do wish I could see the original wording, because maybe a synonym could be used, or not a synonym, another word could be used. That's more aligned with criticism. Maybe something along the lines of Rinwar said to himself, as if criticizing and joking with his absent friend, playing around with his absent friend, something like that, rather than taunting. But now that I say that, maybe that's what the taunting is meant to be in regards to. Maybe taunting not in the, ha, you kind of suck, haha, like Nelson from The Simpsons, but rather taunting as in, oh, you couldn't jump over that? What are you going to do when we come to the next gap? hopefully I'll be able to help you. We're a team. We need to work together. And that's kind of a bad example. But hopefully, I guess, kind of like taunting between siblings, taunting between good friends, taunting between. I'm trying to avoid this example, but I'm just giving analogies. Taunting between individuals who might have feelings for one another, right? So they're taunting each other, but not to be rude or condescending, but because there's a friendly demeanor going on at play. So I do like that quote, and I do feel like the secondary quote goes very nicely with the previous one, and it reinforces Renwar's characterization. And then lastly, of course, and with that, he fully regained his composure. That to me makes Renwar feel a little bit more human, quote unquote, because again, I was worried that he'll be the traditional picks up glasses and flash. He's very confident, very arrogant, and he's that way because he's always succeeding and he's always winning. But that little line, and with that he fully regained his composure, that means that he was feeling nervous. And there's even a little line stating that although that the everything is digital, when the Digimon DNA digivolved, it was quite big, quite grand. He wanted to cover himself, not cower, but just take cover from the droplets that were coming upon him. I will argue that even if one is confident, that might be a little bit nerve-wracking to be standing before a thing that's quite tall, right? I'm recently rewatching the Kong movies, and the first one is a character who she's trying to help another animal, and then Kong comes, helps that animal by lifting up a helicopter, and this human is just looking up at Kong, and she's quite small, right? I could imagine Renwar feeling the same way, and even though he might say to himself, well, this is just digital, it's not real, it might still conjure some negative feelings, a bit of anxiety. So I like that line because it tells us that Renwar is quite human. Also, the next line that I like is, well, hey, our armor's getting thin over there. Hey, you, provide some backup. And you over there, haven't you been resting at all? Haven't you been resting at all? That's a recipe for disaster. Take 5. Why is she standing? She being Queen Beemon, Fun Beemon has evolved. Why is she standing on top of the throne? Renwar looked up at Queen Beemon with a mix of amusement and exasperation. It may be because the royal throne was oversized. Still, Queen Beemon was bustling about on top of it like a performer on stage, furiously managing every corner of the vast base, issuing commands, and occasionally, what might be fan service, winking at the worker bees. Hey, Queen Beemon. Sorry, Winnie, it's just such a great view up here, and I get a bit carried away. Carrying maybe too much, Renwar thought, recognizing all too well the qualities of his partner. Perhaps this was his way of embodying its role as a queen. Seriously, we're in the middle of a battle, my queen. Renwar's lips curl into a gentle smile as he speaks to his partner. We prepared our path to victory. The command is yours to give. Right. Everyone's worked so hard to get us here. Clearing its throat, Queen Beemon unfurls its fan, its green eyes sparkling beneath its mask, All right then, everyone to battle once more. Let's show them our strength. Let's go, Queen Beemon. Attack. So, what I like about this line, especially I would argue this reinforces the personality of Fun Beemon. So Fun Beemon is definitely the more the extrovert. We get a little bit of a glimpse of this with the previous chapter with 2-1, and obviously Renwar and Fun Beemon, they're two sides of a different coin. Renwar is much more introverted, while Fun Beemon is extroverted. And despite this, they're able to bring out the best qualities about one another due to working as a team. As always, Digimon does a really great job about that. We also see elements of this with Yuki. Now, Impmon, the way that Yuki is very much bubbly and friendly, while this Impmon is prickly and not as friendly, right? So, yeah, I do like that. I also like how instead of becoming upset, Renwar plays along with Queen Beemon. He is a bit confused about the way Queen Beemon is behaving, but he also seems to understand why Queen Beemon's the way that she is, right? And also when he states, caring maybe too much. Again, emphasizing, I would argue, even though we've gotten 2 chapters, or 2 halves of 1 chapter with these 2 characters, we obviously see, we be the audience, we see how Fun Beemon does have a nurturing, caring side. So I like this line a lot because it reinforces the behavior that's been established for Renwar and Fun Beemon, and also adds a little bit more as well by letting us know that Fun Beemon is quite nurturing, quite caring, and that's probably why it's a good relationship to have with someone like Renwar, because Renwar is very much introverted. He needs someone to help bring him out of his shell. Now, before I continue, I do have a slight criticism about, I'm not to say it's not about Liberator, but it's more about Digimon. And this might be prickly for some, so pardon me, I don't mean to step on anyone's on shoes or anything like that. But one aspect I didn't like about this chapter was just trying to have the cake and eat it too. So what do I mean by that? I mean the writers. So as an individual who very much works in academia, for me, wording and diction is quite important. And part of diction is, of course, the pronouns. And I understand when it comes to Digimon, there's always been this conversation where Digimon are genderless. Digimon are neither male nor female. But we see that sometimes in the story that they do use gendered words. And I did notice that with Fun Beamon that the story was kind of shifting between feminine pronouns and neutral pronouns. And I do my best to not use the word it just because I'm a big fan of pets. One can tell I have a cat, my dog and my other cat. I consider my pets to not really be pets, but more like companions and stuff like that. So I'd never call my pets the it pronoun. I would say he or she. So that's why I do my best to not use the it pronoun when it comes to Digimon as well, just because I feel like that's very impersonal, and it just means it's more used for things that's not alive. And I would argue that even if one doesn't believe that pets are companions, that pets are very much alive, right? Animals are very much alive, but that's a different conversation. So going back, I do my best to use pronouns because I personally, I'm a big fan of companions within pets. Hopefully that makes sense. But I did notice with this chapter that with Fun Beamon, the writers are doing their best to be genderless. But then when Fun Beamon evolved, hopefully one even noticed this passage that I quoted from. At first, it's very much sticking with she, her pronouns. But then it shifts back over to not even they, them, but it pronouns. And I just don't like that personally. I don't like that because, again, I think it does a disservice to the Digimon as an individual. If one reads these stories as an actual story, is R2D2 C3PO any less of an individual? It's kind of a coincidence because I just am replaying Dragon Age Origins. If we were to take away the emotions from someone, a human being, does that make them any less of a person? I'm talking about the Tranquil here. Those are mages, people who use magic that get their soul relationship to the fade or to the other world disconnected, and thus they lose all their emotions. So again, that's a different conversation, but I just don't like. I do wish that Bandai just more stuck to their guns. And again, I could see it's. I would argue. I wouldn't lie. But when I saw Fun Beamon's design, it did look more masculine to me. So I was actually using masculine pronouns. But while I was reading the story, the behavior and demeanor of Fun Beamon very much felt more feminine than male. And we'll see. There's another quote. I don't want to step on anyone's feet or toes or anything like that. Shoes. But like for example, I can't think of any male friend who would ever just like grab me around my waist and be like, Joseph, how are you doing, or something like that. I've been hugged. I don't mind being hugged, but I'm talking about like grabbing someone around the waist and be like, ooh. We'll come along to that shortly. So I just wanted to quickly touch upon that. From here on out, I'll probably just be calling Fun Beamon as she, because I would say that again. It seems like Fun Beamon is operating more along that kind of behavior. Social partogram. Anything else? Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully I didn't offend anyone. If I did, please let me know in the comments, and I'll do my best to further explain what it is that I'm trying to share my perspective of. And please, again, if I did offend anyone, please let me know that was not my intent whatsoever. Thank you for your patience, everyone. So continuing forward, the next quote. Still, when you think about it, Fun Beamon mutters pensively as they show back. So quickly, context: they've won the battle. Of course, they won. And so now they're walking back through the forest back to the city. So Fun Beamon. Actually, before I continue, one aspect I like about this chapter as well is how the forest is described. I liked how it's described as having or let me just quickly go to it actually since I'm right here. From post-apocalyptic landscapes to districts lined with traditional Japanese homes, diverse green vistas dot the invasive forest city of the Emerald Colonies. That just sounds really nice and picturesque. I wish I could walk along there with my dog. I think that'd be quite fun. Anyways, whoops. I meant to, what am I doing? Oh yeah, going back to the quotes. Excuse me. So going back to the quote, still, when you think about it, Fun Beamon mutters pensively as they show back from the ruins, discussing various uses for the item the NPC dropped. What is it? Wasn't today's battle essentially revenge for Yuki? I told you it wasn't. I didn't come here to do such a pointless thing, Winwa replied with his usual stern face, his words sincere. It wouldn't make Yuki happy to have someone win on her behalf. I thought your face said otherwise. Fun Beamon cocks her head, puzzled by, what? Oh, excuse me. Funbimon cocks her head, puzzled by her rare misjudgment, while Renoir just shrugs. But Yuki and Ipmon are probably done bickering by now and starting to revise their strategy for a rematch. That sounds likely, but I don't think they'll be able to perfect it. Not without help. You're quite sharp, aren't you, Winnie? It was a familiar cycle. Yuki and Ipmon were predictable, and even without Funbimon's keen observational skills, one could guess what was happening. When she gets stuck, she'll definitely come crying to us. Winnie, that's why I need to be ready. That's why I need to be ready. It won't be a good look as a teacher if I'm clueless, right? So we get some more insight into Renoir as a character. So this is what I mean by I do wish that the writers had done this with Yuki as well. I feel like with Yuki, we got insight to her characterization externally, the way that she was behaving. But with this instance, yeah, it's dialogue. But when it comes to dialogue, that's an insight to what one is thinking. And I would argue that the dialogue that Renoir is stating right here, it reflects very much an individual who's self-reflective, who thinks about the actions that they commit to before actually doing that action. So we again come to this conversation that this is not for revenge, this battle. And I love how Yuki points out, I love how Renoir points out that Yuki wouldn't appreciate someone else winning a battle for her. Although she's not here, I think that's great characterization for her. This tells us that she has her own agency, that she very much would rather do things for herself than relying on other people and being passive and dependent. I'm always a big fan of that kind of those kind of characters. So although she's not present, I feel like we're learning so much about Yuki as an individual. And although she might seem for others, they might be doing this on purpose, they being the writers, because some might feel like, oh, the audience might feel not very warm towards Yuki. They might feel even apprehensive towards Yuki because of the way that she behaves. Well, getting the description of people from other individuals is always a great way to find out the truth about them. So the fact that Yuki, despite being bubbly, she's very much a person you do want on your team because she'll carry her own weight, she'll utilize her own agency, and she will be independent. Again, I think that's very awesome. I love the way that the story is doing that. But further than that, beyond that, I also appreciate how Yuki Renoir confirms not only is this not for revenge, but essentially nor is it for bragging rights too, being able to say, ha, Yuki, the Digimon the NPC you weren't able to beat, I and Funbimon were able to. We're obviously better than you and Impmon, right? I don't think Renoir is doing that, but rather Renoir is obviously a good friend to Winnie, and he recognizes that when Winnie loses, she wants to understand why she lost, and she wants to maybe, hopefully, in the future, turn that loss into a win. And what better way than understanding why the loss occurred in the first place? So he understands that Winnie might be coming to him to ask for details and feedback. Well, how can Renoir really be helpful if he has no idea what Yuki is referring to? Yeah, he's done card battles, but he's never done a card battle with this specific NPC, right? Especially with this mysterious circumstances surrounding these mysterious items that come after the battle as well. So I think that's really cool. It shows a lot about Renoir, that he's very much communal focused. Again, it's dispelling my fear that he was the pick up glasses Flash kind of character. But rather he's the kind of character who's going to be like Joe from Adventure 1. Someone who keeps the community in mind. I know I keep saying that, excuse me, but I just really love it when shows do that, when characters feel natural and it doesn't feel in your face about that. Because with Joe, he was the oldest individual, so it made sense for him to be very much thinking about the community. But with Renoir, he's the youngest. He doesn't have to be like that. He could use his age as an excuse. I'm going to date this video, but that meme, that I'm just a baby, whatever that meme one may be aware of, Renoir is not going to do that, right? I'm just a baby. I'm not going to do this, but rather he's going to think to himself, despite being young, I like the relationships that I'm developing, and I want to continue maturing, I want to continue maintaining those relationships. So yeah, I really did like that line. I think it says a lot about Yuki. It says a lot about Renoir and about Yuki. And then it does say a little bit about Funbimon as well. We really know that Funbimon's a Digimon that could pick up on one's behavior and make conclusions about that. And I think it might be implied that maybe Renoir has some romantic feelings towards Yuki, because I don't think I read the line, but it's implied that he gets embarrassed and his ears turn red. I'm neutral about that. If there is going to be any romantic parts of the story. If Yuki and Renoir are just friends, I'm fine with that. But if Renoir ends up having a little even if it's just a crush and nothing goes further than that, I think that would also make sense, because Renoir is a young individual, right? As long as it's done organically and naturally and not in such a way that it's childish, I'll be a-okay with that. So the last quote that I want to review is Weenie. So excuse me. It's Fun Beamon saying Weenie, but in a prolonged way. Let me just do my best to read it. Weenie. Well, what is it? Overwhelmed, Fun Beamon hugs Renoir tightly, making him cry out in shock. What's up with you, Fun Beamon? Hey, Weenie, can I ask you one more thing? Sure. His eyebrows are knitted rarely, but Renoir nods. Fun Beamon's eyes gleam with happiness. Why did you come to Lacuna? Why? At that question, Renoir tilts his head, seemingly perplexed. There are lots of reasons. I want to test out the cards I buy. I'm curious to see how the main scenario pans out. I'm curious to see how the main scenario pans out, and I have assignments for the debug team. And even if not for that, Yuki makes a fuss if I don't log in. Ah, right. Well, what do you want me to say? Renoir responded, caught off guard by Fun Beamon's enthusiasm. I don't really want to stay at home. Mom and Dad are always fighting. A year ago, Renoir answered the same question that way. Fun Beamon wondered if he remembered. Actually, let me go ahead and go back before we discuss the quote. I'm going to go back. That's actually towards very much the end of the portion of this chapter, or part of the chapter. Excuse me, I just wanted to confirm. So yeah, that line, I don't believe Fun Beamon said it out loud. Fun Beamon was just thinking about that line to herself. And I think this actually is very much a huge passage for Fun Beamon's characterization. Like with Yuki, one could superficially say that Yuki is just too carefree. You can't take her seriously, but when push comes to shove, we're discovering that that's not very much true. Yuki is an individual who utilizes her agency. Same thing with Fun Beamon. Superficially, one could say that Fun Beamon is just happy because she wants to be happy, but we see that she's the way that she is because she truly does, again, care about the people that she's working with. I would argue that the fact that she's asking this question again when it's been asked already is because Fun Beamon wants Renoir to grow. Fun Beamon wants Renoir to start doing things, not to avoid other aspects of one life. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Those are called coping skills. But what does become an issue is when that coping skill and mechanism starts substituting, replacing, life. And that's when it becomes unhealthy. I don't think Renoir was doing that. But one should also keep in mind that you should also do things for the benefit of yourself as well. Coping skills and mechanisms are great, but usually when one does that, it's a self-defense that they're doing it, right? They're feeling anxious, depressed, sad. So coping skills, coping mechanisms to help combat those emotions. But other times, sometimes you just do something because you want to feel happy. You want to feel like you're having fun. And I believe that that's what that's what Fun Beamon wants for Renoir. And that's why Fun Beamon's asking Renoir right here, why did you come to Lacuna? Because it seems like Renoir will always do actions. The actions may seem one way, but in reality, Renoir has thought about that action and he's doing it for another reason. A good example would be like right now, it seems like he went to battle his NPC for revenge, but in reality, he wanted to do this battle because he wants to be there for Yuki. He wants to be able to assist her in figuring out why she had lost the battle to begin with. So I like that a lot about this passage. It's saying a lot about Fun Beamon. And I have to say, when I first started this story, I didn't think it'll be Fun Beamon who will have the most agency, but it's seeming like, yes, she does. It's seeming like she very much not just keeps in mind the world of Lacuna, but also the people who inhabit, the people who visit the world of Lacuna too. Hopefully all of that made sense. Thank you so much for joining me along with the discussion for Digimon Liberator, the novel portion 2-2. Hopefully we'll get the next portion, if not next week, then the following week. But I'm sure that will come out eventually. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we got any new chapters for June. Let me not double check, but let me see how long June was. Or maybe we did, because June was 4 weeks. And July is also 4 weeks, so 3 to 4 weeks, so never mind. So again, hopefully we'll get those new portions. As always, I like to continue the tradition. Let me go ahead and read the last passage that ends the chapter. Winnie, or I guess let me go back a little bit. Still smiling, Fun Beamon returns to Renoir's side. Winnie, are you going to log out when we get back? No, I felt good about this deck. I'm going to battle with it a little bit more. I'll find someone to play against. That sounds good. We need to show everyone just how great you and I get along. What? Were you even listening to what I said? Come on, let's go. Fun Beamon buzzed and sped away. Hey, wait. Although Fun Beamon was always playing the role of a helper, maybe she was simply following her own desires. With that thought, Renoir hurriedly started giving chase. The breeze of the inward coast carried the spirited voices of the boy and his digital partner, scattering them to the sky, and then to be continued. I do enjoy how that ends. I think it's very picturesque. I keep seeing that word. Let me use synonym. I think it's very. I can't think of since I. Let me just look one up on Google since I'm right here. Oops. Not attractive, charming. There we go. What a charming way to end the chapter, I believe. It really does conjure a great image of a human with a digital partner going to this beautiful, very verdant green area and going back towards the city. I just really do enjoy it. I did enjoy the way that it ended. I'm not gonna lie, when I started continuing 2-2, I did go in a little bit like, ugh, I hope this would be interesting, and I ended finishing reading it feeling quite enthusiastic, feeling quite excited for the release of the next set of chapters. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. I do appreciate it. My question for everyone is, who are you enjoying more so far? Grinwar versus Yuki. Do you have any preference? And with that being said, let me also include which format are you enjoying? Not format, but which story are you enjoying more so far? So focus less on the format, but more on the subject matter. Which one are you getting more enjoyment from the novel side or from the web novel side? I'm personally enjoying both. I think they both have their positives and they both have their cons. I think when it comes to the novel portion, it might be going a bit more slowly, but the characterization is so strong, as is the world building. And while it's with the comic portion, I think that's more fun in terms of the storytelling and being able to see the journey in the present time and being able to go along with Yuki and Arisa and Shoto. Excuse me, who's Yuki? I don't know where that came from. Oh, Yuki. Sorry, everyone. Pardon me. I'll be honest, everyone. I haven't had my breakfast yet, so maybe that has an impact upon my demeanor. Have a great day. Have a prodigious day. I think I forgot to say that last week. Pardon me about that. But have a prodigious day, everyone, and take care. And as always, thank you for joining and listening. I really do appreciate it.